Hey everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter Music Education. I'm so excited to be sharing with you all this week. So I finally moved into a new rotation of lessons, and I'm going to hopefully share with you my 5-day plan for 3rd grade, because in my current rotation I see every homeroom, or I see a homeroom every day for 5 days, and then I'll get a new homeroom and reteach those lessons to a different group of students. So today I'm going to be sharing with you basically a 5-day progression of 3rd grade lessons, where each lesson is about 50-ish minutes. I'm going to share all the resources and games and everything that sort of goes with that. So that's the plan for what I want to do today. But I want to start with just a couple quick reminders. First of all, if you see any like links or games or anything or books or whatever, anything that I mentioned, like it's on the links page. You can find that by going to my website, makemomentsmatter.org, and clicking the links tab, or if you want a quicker way, if you're watching here on Facebook or on Instagram, Facebook, you can go to the bottom of the caption for this video and just click a direct link, and Instagram, it's on my LinkedIn profile, so you can find those there very easily if you want. Last week I shared about a couple new books that were I was really excited about. One of them, I kept saying, I don't know how to pronounce this name, and I've looked and I can't find it. Please help me. And a lot of you did in the last week. So the book, the name that I was pronouncing, I was saying Simony, and a lot of people said it's Simony, which is or something like that, because it's come sort of from a French pronunciation or French background. And so thank you for correcting me and letting me know. I'm going to keep working on that. But that's, so if you heard me say it wrong all last week, I promise I looked up and couldn't find an answer. So, but a lot of folks have given me that great recommendation to use a different pronunciation. So anyway, I just want to share that. I do have 3 more books I wanted to share this week before I jump into my 3rd grade lessons. I have been looking all around for great books about indigenous cultures, specifically Native American cultures, because I want my students to know more about the First Nations that lived in our country and in our area and in our state. So I wanted to share more about that. And I found 3 great books that were recommended to me, all by the same author, and they, oh my gosh, believe it or not, they are not on Amazon. So I know how I always say, like, I've made these lists on Amazon. You can buy them from Amazon or don't buy them from Amazon, it doesn't matter. But they're almost always, it's like Amazon for me is like the Pinterest of like stuff. Like I can almost always count on it being there to link it together. So if you want to go and find the ISBN, you can go to my Amazon list and find and pull in whatever to build, you know, your own wish list of books. But these books are not on Amazon because they are published by a very small publisher, and it's just something you just get from the author's website. So the 3 books I'm going to share about, I'll share just a little bit about each one, and they're all by the author Violet Duncan. And so the first book is called I Am Native, and I really like this one as a way to maybe start a conversation with students about Native peoples, Indigenous peoples, First Nations, because the book makes really great comparisons. So let me just show you just a couple pages. So this first page says, I am Native. I am a dancer. I dance the jingle dress dance. My mom braids my hair in 2 braids. I dance to bring healing and happiness to the powwow with my family. And then the little hummingbird says, in Native cultures, boys grow their hair long. It is a sign of a warrior. On the next page it says, I am Native. I am a dancer. I dance in ballet class. My mom wraps my hair in a tight bun. In my dance class, I practice different ballet positions in my tutu. So I love that it sort of balances the Native culture with Western influence. So especially for my kids who maybe would not be used to seeing traditional Native dress, they would not be used to that. So it's good to it's a good juxtaposition. It's really good for them to see that. Here's another page. I am Native. I am an athlete. I practice hoop dancing every week. My dad teaches me new designs to create with my hoops. And then it says, hoop dancing is a form of storytelling and is also called the circle of life dance. And then on this page it says, I am Native. I am an athlete. I practice basketball twice a week at the gym. My friends and I have fun playing on our new team. So just really cool comparisons. Talks about cooking with grandma, sort of more traditional things, and then cooking, making a cake. This one is artist, and it talks about, this is really cool, the beaded pieces. And then it says, many native nations adorn their regalia with porcupine quills, elk teeth, shells, and beads. So talking about more traditional native art, and then also just more sort of a traditional, a more generic Western understanding of what art might be. And then it goes into music. I especially love this because it talks about the Native American flute. And yeah, this little part, the Apache Nation make their flutes from the river cane. They call them casul, singing arrows. How cool is that? And then on this page, it talks about learning to play the guitar with my uncle. I'm learning how to strum different chords. And then it goes rider, like a rider of a horse versus rider of a bicycle. Just really fun comparisons. There's a whole page for music. I'm a singer. My grandparents teach me songs using the drum. The songs tell the history of our people. The drum beat is called the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And on this page, I'm a native. I'm a singer. I sing in the choir at my school. I love to sing with all my friends. We're practicing for tonight's school performance. So just really cool comparisons would be really great to start a conversation about First Nations, to start a conversation about Indigenous cultures, or just comparisons, or even just for just a quick lesson talking about, similarities and differences between different cultures. Even if you didn't want to just specifically say just First Nations or just Native cultures, you could just talk about, the differences between cultures, or how people live in two different sort of worlds that are the same world, if that makes any sense. So I think it'd be a really great way to give examples, concrete examples, and especially to show, because I think a lot of times kids grow up with this idea of like Native Americans as like where they used to live, or what they used to be like, or what, because it's always sort of, it starts with this like Thanksgiving, or Lewis and Clark, or whatever, how Native cultures are being taught. And so this sort of brings it into the present of like, these are real life now people, and how you can sort of make those connections. Because I think it's sometimes I see a lot of teachers teaching those sort of like traditional stories of like, well, a long time ago, and then giving examples. But it's gives a great resource to use for like, right now, let's learn about First Nations right now. Let's learn about what things are like right now. So, sort of cool book. That's just the first one by Violet Duncan. And you can find them on her website. I've linked it on the links page, but her website is escaping me. It was just right here. I think it's violetduncan.com, maybe? I'll figure that out. But yeah, no, you can find it right on her website. Yes, violetduncan.com. Okay, another book that I wanted to share by the same author. Oh, and that book was called I Am Native. The next book I want to share is this one called Let's Hoop Dance. Again, by Violet Duncan. You can get on her website. I'll just share just a couple pages of it. So there's a picture, and then the text says, there once was a boy named Naichi. Naichi loved to dance. He would dance from morning until night. His favorite dance was the hoop dance. Every day he would wake up his dad and say, let's hoop dance. Naichi had a set of 4 hoops that his dad had made just for him. He would take his hoops everywhere, in the car, to the park, even to the grocery store. Naichi would practice hoop dancing all the time because he wanted to be a great hoop dancer like his dad. Naichi's dad loved to dance too. He was a great hoop dancer because he would practice every day. Father and son would put on their favorite drumming music and dance the hoop dance together. So he wakes them up in the morning and they go do hoop dancing. I really love this page though, because it talks about, sort of explains to students what hoop dancing is all about and why. the quote says, "Before we dance, we honor the four directions," says Naichi's dad. "We start in the east, we raise our hoops up to give thanks when the sun rises and blesses us with a new day. Next, we turn to the south and raise our hoops to say thank you for the warm winds. We then turn to the west and remember the setting sun." "Naichi, do you remember who comes up when the sun goes down?" his dad asked. "The moon," Naichi answered. "That's right, the moon. The last direction is the north. Do you remember what the north is known for?" asked Naichi's dad. "The north is known for the cold snow and our elders like Grandma and Grandpa." "Very good," exclaims his dad. So then they go through and they talk about why you start with one hoop, what it reminds you of, and he says all the things it reminds him of: the sun, the moon, the earth. All of those are good. The one hoop is very important because it reminds us that there is no beginning and no end. Everything is always moving, just like the seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter, and back to spring. So it gives an explanation of the hoop dance, why they hoop dance. It talks a little bit about how they hoop dance, how they do different things: spun the hoop on one arm, twirled the hoops together, jumped through them like skipping ropes, picked up a second hoop, to remember the balance in life, night and day, woman and man. Can you think of something that's part of that balance? So it just goes through and explains the tradition of hoop dancing, why they hoop dance, how they hoop dance. It has all these really wonderful pictures that help really show what hoop dancing looks like and show both the son and father dancing. So it's, look at that picture. Isn't that the cutest? They're so happy. I love it. Anyway, so they go through, they practice, they have a really great time. And then at the end, there's a picture of Tony Duncan, which is Violet's husband. The symbol of the hoop represents all of life. From the east, as the sun rises, all of life begins. The sun climbs to the highest part of Father Sky, then to the west the sun sets and Grandmother Moon watches over all of Mother Earth. But once more the sun rises to the east, beginning the cycle and hoop of life once more. The hoops dance celebrates the beauty that we call life. The animals, the insects, the earth, the wind, the rain, our families, and the mountains are all shown through the hoops. All of life is sacred, and the hoop dance celebrates and honors the many wonders of life. So, super cool to help explain and to give context and to give examples of the hoop dance and what that looks like and why people do it. And if you look up, and I put a link on the links page, if you look up Tony Duncan, I believe he won the 2019 International Hoop Dance Competition. I believe. At least it has his performance at the 2019 finals, I think, of the International Hoop Dance. So super, super, super cool, and really great with explanations and pictures and to give a little bit more context. The last one I want to share is this one called When We Dance, also by Violet Duncan. You can also get that on her website. And this one is more a narrative, again with a name that I'm perhaps pronouncing wrong. And I've tried to look it up and I can't, but so I'm going to email Violet and make sure I'm pronouncing it right before I share it with students. So there's just this picture that says, "One morning as the sun stretched its rays across the horizon, a whispered breeze blew softly, welcoming a new baby girl. Her mother named her knee piece, Little Leaf. Little Leaf grasped at her mother's fingers. Her proud mother spoke softly to her baby. 'My little Leaf, life is a dance that we shall share together.' Little Leaf grew and grew. Her mother would hold her small hands as she wobbled across emerald-colored grass. As she took her first steps in the dance of life, her mother said, 'When we dance for everyone and everything.' Little Leaf smiled and danced her first steps as light pink flowers tickled her bare toes. Time went by. Little Leaf would run and play until her hair whipped messily behind her. The crisp air created puffy, pearly clouds that streamed from her mouth as she ran. Little Leaf would watch the leaves tumble all around her in beautiful colors of copper and gold. 'Can you see the leaves falling?' asked her mother. 'They dance on the wind to make way for the new leaves that will grow in the spring. When we dance, we are like the leaves, dancing for the ones we have never met.' Little Leaf danced with the leaves as they crackled and crunched beneath her feet." So it goes through basically the circle of the seasons. It goes to winter, and then Little Leaf grows up to be a woman, and she sits with her mother. On that page it says, "My little leaf," her mother would say, "all of life dances in a circle. When we dance for those who came before us and those that will come after us. All of life is a dance that we share together." And then eventually, Little Leaf leaves home. Her mother remembers her dancing, and then Little Leaf has a baby boy, and the mother, who's now a grandmother, it says, felt a swell of pride sweep over her as she marveled at her daughter, knowing that life would continue in beauty. Not long ago, Little Leaf was cradled in her arms with tiny hands, and it would only grasp a finger. "My son," Little Leaf said gently, "life is a dance that we will share together." So she sort of restarts the story and retells the story again from that same point of, we're dancing this life together. So just super, super cool book that would be great if you're wanting to talk about, again, talking about First Nations, or if you wanted to talk about incorporating dance, or how dance is linked to culture and history. I mean, there are just so many cool connections you can make. And also it's a really cool book with beautiful pictures that would be really amazing to include. So all three of these books, I Am Native, Let's Hoop Dance, and When We Dance, all written by Violet Duncan, give amazing perspective on Indigenous cultures, especially the culture that Violet herself represents. She's Plains Cree and I think Taino. So descended from Native peoples in Canada. Violet herself is former Miss Indian World, and Miss Indian World, she represented all Indigenous peoples of North America. Now she lives in Arizona. So super, super cool books. But again, even if you are like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to use them, it'd be a great book to get and to incorporate into your classroom library. If you don't have a book, you can't use it. So if you find, these books are new, they're straight from the author, so you're not going to find them on a discount book website. You could go just straight to her website, which is violetduncan.com, and get the books. They're only $15 each. So they're, I mean, for a children's book, that's so affordable. But you can get the books, and then if you have them, you can use them. Or you could say, like, to your school librarian, like, hey, I would love to have these books in the library, or the PTA. These are 3 books that I would love to incorporate. If I had them, I know I could do that. So great books to keep in mind and to put on your list. And really just cool, great examples. So many fun ways that you could integrate them into a lesson and link them to other things, or just read them and share them with your kids. That's totally fine. You could, that's good. That's good enough. You don't have to have like a, ooh, let me have a chant to go with this. No. And you don't have to, like I said, I already put in the video link of Tony Duncan doing his hoop dancing. It'd be something that I would share with kids and show off to kids, and then that's probably it. I would not grab a hula hoop and like try and do some sort of, here's how we're going to do it. No, that's not my culture and that's not my heritage. But I would show them what it looks like. I would show them examples. I would show them and tell them the story and tell them why it's so important. And maybe I would try and Zoom with someone who is a great hoop dancer and who can give us more of their story and give us more of their connection. I don't have to have like a cool ostinato or a cool whatever to go with the stories. It's enough to just share the culture and to share the example and to give more context. So anyway, 3 great books. I hope you'll check them out. Let's talk about 3rd grade. So like I said earlier, my school is, we're in sort of a weird rotation where we're doing one homeroom every day for 5 days. So I have the same K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 homerooms every day for 5 days. And I see them for 50 minutes, and then I won't see them again for about 4 or 5 weeks, which is not ideal, but is because of COVID and everything else. It's just how it works out. So I wanted to share with you my 3rd grade lessons from the week and share just some of the resources and things that I'm using to teach 3rd grade. Another thing that we're not yet doing is singing. We're not yet incorporating singing because I'm just inside. The ventilation's okay. Our masks are okay. So just to be safe, we're not singing, and it could be that like the conditions are just fine for us to do that, but we're still not doing it just for the sake of safety. So if you're like, there's no singing in these lessons, right? That's just something my district has decided not yet to do. So when we start each lesson, we're starting with body percussion, and I love body percussion. I love using it all the time. I find the more I use it, the more I find reasons to use it. And it's nice because, one, you don't have to have instruments. Like, you don't have to have a laundry list of like instruments that are expensive. It's nice to not have to worry about getting stuff out, handing stuff out, cleaning stuff afterwards. But body percussion is also great because it's very visceral. Like, not only you're doing it with your body, and if you pat your knees, you're feeling that pat. So it's this great connective act thing to do. And I used to think like, body percussion, it's like, it's what we'll just start the lesson. But I found that it is that I use it a lot. And a lot more than I used to. The more I use it, the more I use it, if that makes sense. But anyway, so we start with body percussion, and the very first day on our first rotation, it's just echoing at first. So I'll do a short pattern. Kids repeat, kids repeat. And maybe I'm like, okay, too easy. Let me give you a harder one. And maybe we'll switch to a different level. I'll switch from clapping to patting. And when I go to patting, the very first time in that first lesson day, I always say like, if you want, if I'm patting, you can either do both hands together if you want, or you can do hands separate, or you can do one hand, or you can do the other hand. If you watch, I'm going to use all four. See if you can match how I do it. So then I would give examples. Ba, 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 ba. Or da, 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 da. Or ba, 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 ba. I show them the different examples. And then I say later on in the week, I say something like, if we're patting, you can choose. You can choose either hands together, choose hands separate, choose one hand, other hand. I don't care as long as you match my rhythm. And that's a little thing, but giving kids that choice of saying like, you don't have to do it exactly the same as me, hands together, hands separate. Like, maybe if you're focusing on like different options, but once the kids get it, I just sort of release that over to them and say like, whichever these you want to do. If you want to do hands separate, you want to do hands together, that's fine. Because giving them that small choice, you're still requiring them to do your rhythm, but giving that small choice lets them think like, I have some control here. I get to decide whether, maybe I like both hands. Maybe I like doing hands together. Maybe I like one hand more than the other. I honestly don't care as long as they're echoing the rhythm, but also it's like giving them that little choice. It leads to improvisation later on. It lets them know like, I get to choose, this small choice now informs later when they have bigger choices to make and they feel autonomous a little bit. So anyway, small thing, but we do, patterns, clapping, patting, we might do stomping, we might do snapping, and, so all of that, different levels. I always do all of one level for like 3 or 4 examples. I switch to do all of one level for another example, and then I might mix levels. So, and by level I mean like clapping or snapping or patting or stomping. So then when I mix levels, it might be, right, so a little bit of clapping, a little bit of patting. And I try and mix them in ways that make more, make sense and are easy for kids to transition, right? Then at the very end of our little body percussion segment, I'll say, okay, now I have a challenge for you. I'm going to clap, and I want you to take the rhythms that I clap, and I want you to pat them. So you're going to take the information, you're going to take that clapping, you're going to transmogrify it in your head, and you're going to turn it into a pat. Okay, so if I went, you'd go, right? Let's try it. I'll clap, but whatever I clap, you have to take it and pat it instead. Here I go. right? So now this is trickier because this is a transfer of knowledge. They're taking what they hear, they are switching it. It's not a huge switch, but it's a big enough switch that they have to switch from what they're seeing and hearing and turning it into something else. Not a huge switch or a huge deal, but enough that it's giving them a little bit of cognitive pressure. It's making them do just a little bit more. And then I would switch it. I would say, okay, well, whatever I pat, you have to now clap, right? Okay, let's try. And they go. Right? So then if you really want to mess with them, then you do like 16th notes. And those kids are like, you know, like they try and do it. And I say, oh, was that too fast? Oh, let me try another one. My favorite is to do it with fifth graders when I like pat like a 16th note and I'm having them turn it into stomps. So I'm like, and the kid's like, dun, 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 you know, they're really working for it. But it's fun to do that because then you can talk about, it's easier to do some rhythms on different parts of your body. So when you're doing hands separate for patting, it's easier to do 16th notes than it is if you're stomping it or snapping it, especially, or clapping. So again, just like doing that funny little thing with them and then having a tiny second to talk about, yeah, it's easier to do quicker rhythms on your knees, isn't it? Wonder why that, you know. But then that later on when they're, you know, doing body percussion on their own, they're gonna think about that, or at least have that in their head so that they make a choice about where they want to do body percussion or not. Okay, but that's the beginning of the lesson. It's going to come back in the next lesson, but we start with body percussion in the lesson. Then we switch to note reading. So we go to the Note Neighborhood, which is this set of stories I created, like, it feels like forever ago now, but it's a set of stories that I made that help kids to remember the note values. So in this story, we learn about King Whole Note, which it's this sort of silly story about this whole note. He's the king of Note Neighborhood, and he gets the whole space. They roll out a red carpet for him that's 4 beats in length, right? And he gets the whole thing. And so we've already talked about quarter note, eighth notes, quarter rest, half note, half rest. So this is now like the next in a series. They're already familiar with all the other notes. They're already familiar with all the other sort of stuff that goes into Note Neighborhood. So adding King Whole Note is just like the next step. It's the next note value that I would want them to learn. I didn't always used to do whole notes. It's just hard to teach whole notes in elementary school because you could teach the theory, but the practice is really boring, right? So like if they're like doing xylophones, well, that doesn't have a sustained tone. So how are they going to do a whole note? Are they going to roll a whole note? Are they going to just play and wait? You know, like that's boring. Or if they're clapping or patting, it's tricky to do whole note. Really, whole notes are most effective when you're doing like a wind instrument because you actually have to hold and play them for a long time. So there were definitely times where there were definitely times in the past where I wouldn't teach whole note for a long time, if at all. And I always justified it by saying, like, what's the first thing you learn at beginning band? The whole note, right? Because that's like what they start with, is just whole days of whole notes. So if you don't get to King Whole Note, that's totally fine. But the reason we do King Whole Note is that then you get to do a 4-beat bow, you know, ta, and for some reason these silly stories stick with kids so well. So we start with we go from body percussion, we move into King Whole Note, and in the progression of the Note Neighborhood lesson, they start with ta, they remember some things there. King Whole Note comes and introduces himself, explains, you know, how many beats he gets, what you have to do if you see one. They read, they practice. It's pretty quick, but it introduces and gives them the idea of the whole note. And anytime I introduce a new note value like that, I always immediately follow the Note Neighborhood story with, let's find it on the vocabulary wall. Okay, everyone, turn and see if you can find it. You know, to help them identify where it's going to be, where they can use it again, when they can find it, what it is in relation to all the other notes, and also just how to utilize the vocabulary wall. We do that. We point that out, whole note, and then in our time that's left, we make a switch to, again, this is a 50-minute lesson, so I try and do it like little block of this, little block of this, little block of this, little block of this, because kids can't handle 50 whole minutes. So having smaller chunks that they can digest is more palatable. I must be hungry having these food references. but it's more palatable for them to be able to do smaller chunks. If you try and do like one lesson that spans 45 minutes, it's probably you might have issues, right? So even if it just means like you do something for a while and then you stand up and do the same thing in just a different position or whatever to give them a little bit of contrast. But what we're doing is sort of shifting from note value to something different. So after that we grab, we learn a little folk dance movement thing called, Los Machetes. I thought it was in this Phyllis Weichert book, Teaching Movement and Dance, which is like the Bible of elementary movement. But I can't seem to find it. And so now I'm thinking I got it from a Sana Longden workshop, who's also a wonderful, amazing teacher. I don't know why I thought it was in here. Maybe I pulled something else similar from here. So I don't have the exact lesson or where exactly it came from. I thought I was just going to be able to just say, like, get this book or read in this book, but I don't think that it's actually in here. So I did find Sally Utley did a blog post about it several years ago, so I linked that on the links page. But it's just a simple little dance with sort of 3 sections. And originally it was done with machetes in Mexico, which I always try and explain to students. I don't even necessarily mention the machetes part, but I just say like, oh, this folk song in Mexico. Anyway, we don't use machetes, but I always talk about like they're like little mini swords. It's just tricky because like kids, their schema of machete is not very good. I always grew up knowing that like we used it in the fields when I grew up on a farm, so like when we would go like walk the fields and cut out weeds and stuff, like we would use machetes, but it's in too many horror films to not try and give a little reference for kids. Anyway, so there is a tradition in Mexico where they take machetes and they dance with them. And so like if we were to use rhythm sticks, like they would use blunted machetes. So anyway, it's sort of a cool tradition, but you got to sort of introduce it gently to the kids so they're not like, oh, machetes, like in the horror movie. No, not like that. Like definitely not like that. Anyway, so the cool dance, I have linked the lesson idea, but it's just basically a 3-part dance where one part is like clicking to the steady beat. The next part is like under one leg, under the other leg, back and front, click, click, click. And then the last part is waving and moving. That's what I learned. And now that I keep saying, I think it was in a Sana Longden workshop. But Sally has that on her blog post, which I have linked. And it's really easy to do. The music that I use for it is I search Los Machetes on Spotify, and it comes up right there. You think you can also find, there are like video clips of people dancing with machetes on YouTube if you want to go down that route. I've done that before and it's worked okay. And then with our time that's left, I use this book, Miguel and the Grand Harmony, which I shared about, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago? Several weeks ago. But it fits sort of in with this idea of Mexico and music and sharing more culture. And so this book is a really great book in there. And kids love it because it says Coco on the front. And like it vaguely retells part of the story of Coco, not the whole thing. But it's a super cool book to add in. So if we have time, if the other things have gone by just smooth as icing and we're still on track, then I share Miguel and the Grand Harmony. If we don't have time for that, then maybe I share just a shortened version or something else. But this is a book that it's really lovely and the pictures are beautiful. But I know I shared about it a couple weeks ago. I will tell you, I pre-recorded myself reading the book. So I have a video of myself reading the book that I start and play and I step back and sort of like, and I've said this before, but music teachers should absolutely feel totally okay with having parts of their lesson where they are not actively working. So like if you have a book that you own and you pre-record yourself reading it, just like you would do in class, and you have the book there like, this is the book we are going to be reading, and then it's already there. That means that you don't have to use your voice for the entire 50 minutes, and you don't have to be standing in front of them for the entire 50 minutes. It gives you a chance to sort of step back. Other teachers in their homerooms are not talking or actively working from bell to bell. Like I know that's what they say happens in professional developments, like for the whole staff, but I know that's not what happens because I get emails from teachers all the time in the middle of their like teaching period. So feel okay having some pre-recorded things that you like press and go and are great with. Okay, that's day 1. Day 2, guess what? We start with body percussion. And so we start with body percussion, and we follow basically the same path. We do 1 level clapping. I clap, they clap. I clap, they clap. I clap, they clap. I clap, they clap. Then we'll move to padding. I clap, they clap. I clap, they clap. You know, if they get a little tired of it, add a more complicated rhythm instead of just do like, right? Or a more advanced rhythm, or a syncopation, or a something. Or maybe, what I also love to do, is instead of just doing 4-beat, do 8-beat. And then that's one more thing that they're like, ooh, you know, like, ooh, we were this long, now we're this long. Oh, you know, so like it gives them a little bit more to grab onto when they're like, ooh, we need challenged. No, you don't. You're 3rd grade. But anyway, so we do a little bit of body percussion and we work up to the different levels, right? And we keep going with that. And then my transfer for that lesson is, I'm so tired. Y'all, I'm just old. So I don't know if I can keep doing this clapping. But you know what? Why don't I sit here on my comfy stool and I'll say a rhythm and you turn that into claps. So instead of like me doing it and you doing it, how about like I say it and you clap it, okay? And they're like, yeah, man, around, you're all okay. So, but then I'll say like ta 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 dee ta, and they get a clap. Ta dee ta ta dee ta. Great. Okay, so the main point is I want them to take the spoken word, the spoken note value, and hear it, and then turn that into claps, right? Like that's a good transfer of knowledge, but also I want a chance to sit down. So like even though I'm joking about like I'm old, but like actually I'm tired. So okay, so I sit and then they clap, and then like I'll speak and they will pat, right? If you want, you could then grab some rhythm cards and you could do a thing where you say like, read the rhythm, ta 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 dee ta, clap it, ready, here you go, ta 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 dee ta. So like you might be holding the rhythm or putting it under a dot cam, and then I always use the like read it first, then clap it, right? Read, then perform. That's always the path that I sort of take. Then I do, and I've shared about this several weeks ago, the song 7 Jumps, which is a New England Dancing Masters song. And I take it instead of the basic lesson that I've used for years where we like move locomotor throughout the room, we just do everything from our non-locomotor spots, from our dot spots. And it's the same basic moves for the dance. If you don't know it, it's on 3 or 4 different blogs. But I use the same, not my blog, but blog posts out there. You just search 7 Jumps, elementary music. And I just take the same basic thing. Instead of it being locomotor or around the room where we could be mingling with each other, we just do it in our own space. And it's fun. They think that it's silly, but it's also just another chance for us to move and to get a little bit of motion out before we then focus in on something else. So we do the body percussion for 5-10 minutes. We do the 7 jump stance, which takes another 5-10 minutes, I don't know. And then we talk about possibility with instruments. So I have there are a couple really cool books that you could pull into the lesson if you wanted. There's a book called What to Do with a Box. There's a book called This Is Not a Stick. There's a book called gosh, I can't think of the other one. What to Do with a Box. This Is Not a Stick. But it's basically all these books that are like, here's this thing. It's not actually this thing. It's this other thing. So like, this is not a stick. They take a stick and they're like, it's not a stick. It's a sword. It's not a stick. It's a baton. It's not a stick. It's a whatever. All these different things that like it is a stick on the page, but they're like pretending, they're imagining what else could it be if they wanted. And those books are fun lead-ins that you could absolutely do. I like to do this just with whatever non-pitch percussion that I have. And so I'll pull out like my kabasa, right? And so instead of, I'll say like, oh, it's a kabasa, and you play it like this, right? And you sort of, I love, showing why it works. Oh, you move these beads around the cylinder, it sort of scrapes along the inside, and if you look really close, you can see, you know, what it's scraping on, and that's what makes the sound. Gosh, everyone, I'm so sorry. This isn't a kabasa. I can't believe I made that mistake. It's not an instrument. It's actually what? It's a chicken wing or a chicken leg, but it's some sort of festival food, right? Yeah. Oh, my mistake. I'm so sorry. Oh, actually, no. It's a hello, everyone, and welcome to the auction. You know, it's a microphone. And so I go through 3 or 4 different things the instrument could potentially be. Oh, it's a rubber stamp. Punk. You know, like, oh, it's approved. You know, like, and then kids will latch onto that, and so you say, what else could it be? Let's see, raise your hand if you have an idea what else it could be. What else could it be? You know, oh, yeah, oh, sure, it could be a hat. Oh, lovely, it's a fascinator. How cool. Okay, what else could it be? Oh, it could be, telescope, not telescope, what is the word? I don't even know. It's that thing that you can see through. Why can't I think about it? It's late. I need some more tea. Anyway, all the things that it could be, right? That it resembles, or you could pretend if you're thinking, what else could it be? Then I'll reach in and I'll pull out another instrument. Oh, no, yeah, it's a tone block, and you can play this tone block. You can play a couple different ways. You take a mallet and you click, right? You could, looks like this one you could maybe scrape, because it does have sort of the ridges on there. I don't say to kids that I hate when that happens, but you could, yeah, you could maybe do it. Wait, what if we turned it like this and played like here? Okay, I don't like that sound as much because it's not quite as loud, and it doesn't, I don't know. Ooh, that just, I feel like that resonates a little bit more. Ooh, it reminds me of so many other sounds. This just sounds like maybe I'm tapping my desk or the floor or something. Like, that sounds like a lot of other sounds that I know, but this is sort of a fun, special sound. And so I would go through with students like, oh yeah, where else can you play on here? Why else? Maybe what? Because then you're talking about like evaluation of the sound and why you would maybe choose one over the other. Because kids will inevitably want to, you know, click in different places or try different things. Or the one they always want to do is like put them out inside and like try and do that unsuccessfully usually. But why, you could talk through why you would maybe do that. And so it then becomes like instrument exploration, an instrument like, what else could we do, right? And so then after you know, go through like, how do you play? In what ways could you play? Then you know, oh yeah, Kelsey's spyglass, sure, yeah. Or kaleidoscope, Jenny also says, yeah. So all the things you could make it, right? This one is T-5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off! Yeah, okay. Or, this one makes a really good ice cream cone. You know, right? Like all the things you could make the instrument and have a fun exploration time with it. I do that with 3 or 4 different instruments. We explore, we play. The cool thing about that is if you just have like 1 or 2 different non-played percussion instruments, you're like, I don't really have a cool lesson or whatever to use this shake array, or, you know, like I can't give it to kids all that often. Well, guess what? Now's a great time to pull that out and use it, because for this specific lesson, I am personally doing 2 or 3 different examples with kids, and then kids are going to all try. I have a class set of hand drums, and so every kid, you know, will get a hand drum, and then we'll explore different ways to play. So maybe we'll play with our hands like this, holding with one hand, playing with the other. Maybe we'll set it on the ground and play it, because that never works, and like, so showing them like, that sounds really not as great, you know. And so like, then you can have that conversation about, why doesn't it sound as good? Do you think it sounds as good? Why do you think that? Instead of just the teacher saying like, we don't set it on the ground, we don't play it like that. Why not? You know, like you could do it that way. Why not? You know, so you can talk about like, it makes a louder sound. Oh, it feels like it resonates more. Oh, it carries more. It goes through the room faster. Oh, it just, it's the kind of sound is different. The kind of sound, the effect of this sound you get is different. So having that conversation is a good conversation to have. And then you could also talk about, you know, whole hand or just your fingers, or the different kinds of sound, or what if you scraped it, or what if you rubbed your hand along, all the different ways you could make sound. What if you played on the inside of the drum? Ooh, that's fun too. And so going through and exploring with kids, again, it's like a little thing, but it's preparatory play. It's, kids learn when they're playing and exploring, and they take that with them. So leading them through some of that with an instrument is, number one, really fun. Like, they love doing it. And number two, it gets them to see possibilities. I can't tell you how many times I do a lesson like this and kids leave smiling, but are also like so much more confident holding and playing and trying, making new sounds, emulating sounds. You could even say, like, make the sound. Can you think we can make the sound of like raindrops? Do you think we can do that with our drum? What about like very steady rain, right? Oh, really light rain. Oh, wow. Do you think we could make the sound of a semi-truck? Do you think we could do that? And then you can explore like the semi-truck, like, no, I don't think that we could actually do that. Do you think we can make the sound of bacon frying on the, or I don't know, popcorn? I mean, like all these different things. You're like, ooh, can we do that? And some you might choose on purpose. No, you can't. Some you might choose like, yes, sure. To see what kids can do and see what they can come up with. And if nothing else, after you've done just a little bit of that, you could always be like, ooh, I have an idea. Remember how body percussion at the beginning of the lesson, like I said a rhythm and you clapped it? How about like I say a rhythm and you play it on the drum? Think we could do that? Yeah, okay, let's do, so then you sort of tying the lesson with a bow, because what you did at the beginning, you're doing at the end, only instead with a drum at the end. These drums are fiber skin, and I'm told you can wipe them with a Lysol wipe, and they're fine. That's what I'm told. Ooh, David just asked, how are you cleaning the hand drums? But they're not a natural skin, so I'm told that they are okay to clean with a Lysol wipe and my school's cleaning material. Other things you can do, you could put press and seal on it, press and seal wrap, and then strip that off or spray that down if you wanted. The other thing I keep hearing from my district officials, that the research keeps saying over and over that COVID is not transmitted through materials, or it's not transmitted as often through materials or contaminated touchable materials. It's more often through like aerosols or things in the air. So they're like, we are worrying less about sanitizing surfaces. I mean, they are still sanitizing surfaces, but it's not as big of a deal as maybe we once thought it was. So my district also says, like, you can let things sit for 48 hours and then they should be fine, because that's what the research seems to show. But David, to answer your question, I'm cleaning the hand drums with my school spray and wipe, and that's fine. And also, I am in some instances just letting instruments sit, because if I plan strategically, where like one class uses it and then we don't use it for 2 days or 3 days, or no other class uses it, then I don't have to worry as much about the sanitizing in between. What drum am I using? I have a set of drums in varying sizes. And so I don't hand out the ginormous ones, but basically anything else is free game. I'm just using what I have, and I'm also not handing out very strategically with sizes, because I want kids to get different sizes and see what it's like, see how it's different, see, all sorts of things. So I'm not as specific about like only the 14 and, I don't know. But I'm just using what we have and seeing where we go from there. Ooh, I'm running out of time. Okay, day 3, this is the first time we look at body percussion on a staff. And so these are pre-printed, but I have it as a PDF. I'm working on this resource. I don't have it in my Teachers Pay Teacher store yet, but I'm working on it because I want to make it valuable before I put it out there. So I have, these are all 3-line examples. Rats. Okay, well I have these as 2-line examples as well. Like I said, I'm still working on this. But we start out looking at body percussion on a staff. We've done so much echoing, we've done so much sort of going from rhythms to body percussion, that this is like a good next step in the progression. So in my PowerPoint, I only have so many of these printed out, but in my PowerPoint, which I share to kids, we'll have just all on one line. So we like read and then we clap, and then I'll move all to another line. We read and then we clap, and then we'll start mixing lines, right? We read and then we clap, and this is a great way to, number one, to get them to start thinking about reading and then performing, right? But also it's great because you can talk about reading the whole thing and not just reading like I was being observed by my principal, and she commented that she liked that I said, like, it's not like reading a book where you read one whole line and the whole next line and then the whole next line. You have to sort of read it together. And she's like, that was a good comparison. I was like, I can't think of a comparison in their homeroom where they would read multiple lines like that, like not in math or reading. And so I'm going to be brainstorming with those homeroom teachers, like, is there an instance where you would read multiple things like that? And I don't know that there really is. So, but giving kids that explanation of, like, it is not like reading a book, because you have to sort of monitor the multiple lines at once, is tricky. But we go through and then read on multiple lines. We try out different things, and it's fun for them. It's tricky for them. And I was being observed on this third lesson last week, and I was like, I don't know how it's gonna go, because it's my first year at this school and we've not done something like this. She was like, oh cool, I can't wait to see it. And it did not crash and burn, so I felt good about that. But so it's the first time where we like sort of take the body percussion on a simplified staff. Like I said, I first start with just 2 lines, just a clapping and a patting line. And then once we've done multiple examples with that, mixing the 2 lines, all that, then I'll go to a 3-line staff with clapping, patting, and stomping. When we get really inventive, we'll go to a 4-line staff, snapping, clapping, patting, and stomping, where they get to see all 4 at once. We start with body percussion, we go back to the note neighborhood, and we do the whole rest. And in this story, King Whole Note falls into a hole. And it looks suspiciously like a whole rest, and he falls in the hole and has to get out, has trouble getting out, and all this other stuff. But the story, again, using the story helps kids remember the note value itself and the application and the use of it. So that's why I started doing Note Neighborhood forever long ago, because I found that using that narrative really helps kids cement in the understanding of the note value and how it works and all of that. So we spend time first reading on body percussion, so reading note values and transferring to body percussion. Then we do just this, the story of Note Neighborhood and King Whole Note's rest. We learn all of that, we identify it, we find it on the vocabulary wall. Then, with our remaining time, I pass out whiteboards, and my students all brought their own dry erase marker, which was cool, because they have them in their school kit. So they came down with their dry erase markers. We use our whiteboard that I provide, and then we spend the rest of the time creating the notes. We make a quarter note, we make a quarter rest, we make a quarter note and a quarter note, we beam it together, make it an eighth note, we make a half note. We make all the different ones, because 2 things. One, I want them to know how to make the different notes. I want them to know the process, because just like writing in like letters and numbers, like they have to be taught how to do that. And so I always try and make sure that there's a lesson where like I show them how to make the notes. So then you don't end up with like a note head with like a stem coming straight out the middle or on the wrong side or whatever. And so we go through, and I always say, like, even if like they don't become a musician, maybe they become a graphic designer and don't make a trapper keeper with notes backwards. Like, okay, then my lesson is a success. I don't know. But anyway, I always go through and I try and make sure that we do this lesson with creating. And then in our time at the end that's left, we'll make like a 4-beat pattern. Right? That's the sort of if we can get to it. If not, it's okay just for me in my head. It's enough to just make the notes. And my kids all have iPads, so we take a picture of the notes that when we're done, just so we sort of have an artifact of like, look what we did. Even though it's maybe not that big of a deal. But we do take the picture, we keep it as an artifact, we turn it in, because we have the iPads there. But again, I would rather do dry erase marker and dry erase board than do it on an iPad, because that is a very different tactile experience. And so we do it on the whiteboards and then take a picture, and on a separate day, maybe when they're older, we will do it on the iPad. But again, that's like the difference between typing and writing with a pencil. Why would you do both? They're both valuable in their own ways. But okay, that's that lesson. Ooh, I rushed through that because I'm running out of time. On the 4th day, which happened to be today, We do the body percussion staff. We read multiple examples. We go through. It's wonderful. We have fun. It's like just a review, basically. And then, again, because my students have iPads, and I know that we're very blessed to have that situation, let me see if I can show you sort of what we do with them. If I can turn this around. Ooh, and show you. Okay, so here's my iPad. All right, so in this part of the lesson, rats, I gotta pull this up. All my kids have iPads. All my kids have this little thing called a crayon. It's not a pen. Or not the pencil, not the iPad pencil. It's like a Logitech crayon. I don't know. It's different. I think that it's cheaper. So, but it works just fine for kids. Anyway, so we have this app called Sketches School that all the kids use. They've used for other things. I airdrop to them this slide, which is, again, there's just the 2 lines, so there's clapping and there's patting. And so what I do is I give them an example where they get to create their own body percussion pattern. So maybe they choose like ta, 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 ta. Okay, they could do that, but that'd be boring, right? So like, all right, let's see what we could do instead. Maybe ta, 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 right? So like I give them examples of what they could do, and then I let them do that. If they do the 2-line, then they can also I'd airdrop to them this 3-line one that uses clapping, patting, and stomping. And what I love about this is, one, in the lesson we have to talk about how the note head, the line has to go through the note head, because kids inevitably will do this, where they draw on top of the line, because it's just, they're used to it because of handwriting, because they would write their name like this. So I always show them like they can write their name with the line going through, and they think that's deliciously funny. But anyway, so we do that. And so it's good to be able to talk about, the note head, the line going through the note head. And then I also make sure that I talk to them about not stacking on top. Like, which of these do I read first? I don't know. Because if you're going along, like, which one comes first? So talking about, like, you have to give enough space. I'm old. I'm Mr. Rao. I can't read very well. So, because my eyes are so bad and whatever. So, like, if you stack them together, I can't tell. So use some space. Spread them out. Let me know which one is which. Otherwise, it's going to be hard. Ooh, can't do that. That's going to be hard for me to read. So I share that with them, and I share some of those just writing tips so they can see sort of what that looks like. And it's just a super fun lesson. It's real easy, so simple. And then in the time remaining after that, there's another app that we use called Tune Train. This one's a freebie. You can find it in the App Store. And here, let me go back to the main screen. So Tune Train, I know I've shared about this before, but you can choose a level, and then you choose, it looks like, a game, like a N64 game, or N64, gosh, I'm so old, like an Xbox game. So anyway, here's the train. It starts at the station. You get to choose what houses it goes to. I'm just using the pen because I'm far away, but I'd use my finger probably, because the pencil works like okay. Right? Ooh, let's get to the station. Come on. Right? So I just choose a random path, right? We talk about how you choose a path, why you might choose high and low, and then you can play it. Fun. Okay, but we can make it better. You can choose a backing track. Let's do pop. I don't know if you can even hear that. So this is cool because then I can go back to kids and talk about why you might revise or change your decisions, why you might go back and be like, oh, that was a weird jump, so maybe I'll just choose one that's a little bit closer. Or maybe, like why you might do that, why you might change it, and then listen to it again, decide if you like it, change it or not, You can also change the backing music. You can also do this where it shows you the written notation and it follows along. Right? And it really, you can also have a lesson about how the backing track changes the sound of the music. Right? That's called Tune Train. It's a freebie in the App Store. So why not try it out? Okay, I'm out of time, Instagram. I got to let you go. I'm going to quickly finish up with Facebook so that they can see the final lesson. But thanks so much for coming along, Instagram Live. It was great to have you tonight. Bye. So, Facebook, I'm going to quick finish up with just a couple more thoughts. So this was day 4 in the lesson cycle. There's one more day, and in that lesson we do a book called Run Turkey Run. It's a fun little lesson where we're going to add in just a ostinato sort of rhythm pattern with the book Run Turkey Run. And then also in that lesson we take I know I've shared many times about these rhythm cards that I've made that have food words on them, and we're going to take those food words and sort of use it to compose a short, 4-measure pattern. And because we've spent some time composing and spent some time talking about rhythms and note values, then the idea would be that then once they've composed it on the cards, they can transfer it to a worksheet or to an iPad or whatever, and sort of recreate it in a different space. And these cards, yes, I've made them years ago for centers, right? But I think that I have enough that I can either take, the centers that I printed off, I had like 9 bags with the intent that kids would share. Well, now that I'm not doing that, I can take each bag, because each bag has 30 words. Hooray for me for thinking ahead, making so many words, I guess. Because I just wanted options. Well, now I can take those 30 words and I can break each bag into 3, so I can have a bag of 10 words. So that means my original 9 stations has now become 27 bags that I can hand out so that kids don't have to share cards, so they don't have to share materials and then have to disinfect or whatever the bags. But again, this is something that once I've used it, I'm going to let it sit. And let it sit until the germs die off of it, right? So I'll let it sit for at least 48 hours. But honestly, if I'm using it once a week, it'll be 7 days between uses, so I'm not worried about it. But that's the final lesson. So throughout the whole week, they get a lot of note value. They get a lot of recreating or creating the notes. There's application of that knowledge. Tune Train sort of gives it a melodic version. The body percussion gives it at least the up and down on a simplified staff, so you get a lot of that connection throughout the week. Okay, that's my 3rd grade lessons. I hope that gives you some ideas and some thoughts about what you can do, and at least sort of see a progression of things from day to day. Like I said, the body percussion is a short thing. Every day it's a little thing, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but it really does add up, and it really is something you can build off of as you go. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Like I said, all those links and ideas are on the links page, so check them out. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com. Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy your spending time with your students, and stay warm. Bye, everyone.